All right, so we're going to talk about the Paloff press and its application to sport. So first and foremost, what's it doing? Let's look at a Paloff press versus something all athletes can relate to, ground reaction forces. So in any sport, the essentials are going to be the amount of force that they can absorb and handle and the speed at which they can do so. So in terms of force in the Paloff press, you're probably looking at maybe 40 to 60 pounds. In terms of speed of the Paloff press, it can vary, but you're looking at maybe 1 second. So the force of a ground reaction force, you're looking at in an elite sprinter up to maybe 5 times that of their body weight, and the speed at which that's happening is a fraction of a second. So taking those two things into consideration, is this preparing our athletes for their sport? Slash, is this exercise doing what we think it's doing? Transference to sport. So, three big things we need in any situation to peak the athletes are force that they're going to be seeing in the competition, the speed at which that's going to be happening, and the movement pattern that correlates to what they're going to see in their sport that's going to be most common. So in terms of the Paloff press and the movement patterns, are the athletes going to be in a bilateral position with their arms extended, ribs tucked, core engaged, and hips rolled underneath them? Or are they going to be running, chaotically have to react to something and have to rely on their spine and their previous training to stabilize? So taking into account the lateral sling here, the force that they're trying to stabilize, the lateral sling being the contralateral sides of the body, so the right leg and the left side of the upper body, and the left leg and the right side of the upper body. So if you're looking at a Paloff press, if it's done in a bilateral position, either lateral sling is going to cut whatever weight that the athlete is trying to stabilize, it's going to cut that in two. So you're only loading each sling with half of that weight. So if it's 40 pounds, either sling only has to overcome 20. Even if it's done in a unilateral position, that's only going to be 40 pounds of force. Given the previous example of the sprinter, unless the athlete weighs 8 pounds, then the Paloff press isn't properly creating enough of a stimulus for that sprinter to set them up for success when they get to their competition. One way that you can train the anti-rotation is through the lateral sling. So hips are huge, obviously, what connect the lower body and the upper body. So without a stable hip complex, you're going to compensate. So you're going to compensate through the upper body by rotating. So thinking about how they work together, poor running mechanics during wicket drills, athlete throws their arms up overhead so they can't rely on those, and you can tell easily if they're rotating or not. So if the foot strikes the ground and the athlete isn't able to properly absorb that force, then when the force gets to the hip, they're going to rotate in and they're going to create a compensation pattern through this rotation. So as mentioned previously, this force greatly exceeds that of 100 pounds, far more than a unilateral Paloff press. So the best way to train for this is using maximally loaded unilateral movements, as these place all the force on the corresponding lateral sling, and you can use loads that are more equal to those seen during sprinting. So clicking on this link will take you to that of a safety bar split squat, a method that we commonly use, and this link will take you to a variation of a pitch arch step up that we use, in which case the athlete is being pulled to the side. If they're performing step ups with their left leg, they're being pulled to the left side, taking the hip out of position, forcing that left glute med to contract to pull their hips back into position, and boiling down to training the lateral sling to train anti-rotation in the hips.